Hello viewers, welcome back to the Car Cave. Now in today's video we have this. It's a C8 Corvette and it's been loaned to us by the Dutton Motor Company in Riverside, California. They've been very kind in letting us shoot this video today, and this car actually happens to be for sale. So if you're in the market for a C8 or just want to check out their stuff, I'll leave links to their website and social media below for you to go ahead and check them out. Now back to the Corvette. Before 2020, the Corvette had always been a front mount V8 sports car, and in my opinion it was always one of, if not the best bang for your buck performance car that you could really buy. But it could never be a supercar because the engine was in the front, and that goes against all of the rules that I've made up in my own head. But in 2020, Chevy decided to upset the balance of power. They've gone against nature and they've moved the V8 from the front of the Corvette to the rear. So the question becomes, now that it's a mid-engine car, is it an amazing supercar? And because it was the best bang for your buck sports car, is it now the best bang for your buck supercar? We're going to find out by having the Corvette try to check off some very important supercar criteria. Now, first on the list is speed. Is the Corvette a fast car? Well, yes. For anybody that's read anything about this car, you'll know that this is a properly fast car. Now, it has up to 495 brake horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. That drives the rear wheels only, and it does 0 to 60 in about 2.9 seconds. Now, that 0 to 60 time varies based on where you read it, but I'm just going to call it 2.9 for the sake of this video. That's fast. That's actually faster than an Audi R8 does 0 to 60, and the R8 has all-wheel drive and almost 100 horsepower more. Now, the performance is obviously not just due to the power. The car does have a pretty clever 8-speed double-clutch automatic gearbox, exclusively actually an automatic. With the C8 Corvette, there's no longer a manual transmission offered, which I know a lot of us were pretty sad about, but in the pursuit of performance, you're really not going to be able to beat the automatics of today. It also has these massive 305 rear tires which hug the tarmac like a baby sloth to its mother. Now, any respectable supercar would be pretty ridiculously loud and should be able to piss off your neighbors when you leave early in the morning for cars and coffee. So is the new C8 a loud car? Well, to find out, I actually have the key right here in my pocket, and it's got a cool feature. A lot of cars have this now, but I'm still 6 years old, so it impresses me every time. You double tap on this key and it will turn it on. Yeah, it's kind of loud. It's not like obnoxiously loud, but it's pretty loud. Now, supercars also have to look the part, and that's a bit subjective, except that it isn't. See, on the new C8 Corvette, moving the engine to the rear really made a dramatic change to the look and appeal of the Corvette body. I mean, it looks like they took the styling off the F-22 Raptor fighter jet and then made it slightly more extreme. See, the front end is nice and sharp like the Sword of Heroes from Kung Fu Panda.
Said to be so sharp you can cut yourself just by looking. Ow!
The side profile is aggressive and definitely looks exotic. It has these really great integrated vents to cool the massive V8 in the rear. You do get a lot of functional vents. That's something that always upsets me with modern cars, is they get these fake vents. If it's not going to do anything, don't put it there. It's got these great quad exhausts. They're fine. I would have liked to see something a little bit more interesting and aggressive, kind of like the Lamborghini Huracan, how it has these massive exhaust pipes sticking out of the rear bumper. But overall, it looks fine. And I do believe that Chevy actually was one step ahead of me, because the exhaust on the new Z06 looks much better. But overall, it's pretty snazzy. Something that maybe not a lot of people are aware of is that Lamborghinis and Ferraris and, whatever, McLarens, they all have pretty interesting and quirky interiors. They're not a place that you would be able to find things relatively easily, right? They put buttons in places that they really shouldn't be. So in order to be a proper supercar, the Corvette needs to do much the same thing. Now, the interior is definitely interesting and is definitely quirky. It's different from previous generation Corvettes. Now, with a lot of cars, you feel like you're cocooned as the driver, especially performance-oriented cars, but they've taken that concept to a whole nother level in this car. With this center console, it really puts you almost like you're in a single-seat sports car, and then your passenger just happens to be there. It's actually kind of nice. I didn't think I was gonna like it, but I really do. As far as being able to fit, I have almost negative headroom. So if I lean the seat back, I can fit, but otherwise I can't really sit up straight. Not that you would need to. And it's kind of a thoughtful interior. I've got my cell phone here and it's got a little slot right here. Nuzzles in there nice and snug. You've got two cup holders, which look big enough to hold something. You've got some carbon fiber bits and bobs here and there, but overall, it is a nice interior, and it's a little bit quirky. You know, all of your buttons are here on this little dash side. I don't know. See, it's got the controls for the passenger and for the driver, but I don't know which one is which. So like the seat heating and seat cooling, I have no idea which one is mine and which one is for the passenger. So I guess that's a little bit quirky and doesn't really make any sense. So that's definitely supercar mentality. To open the door, you've got a little button there. All your other controls are here. Overall, the aesthetic of the interior kind of makes sense, but then it is interesting. So I would say checkbox for that. Now, supercars are supposed to have some crazy numbers all the way through, and that should include the price. So is the C8 Corvette expensive? Not really. It's got a base MSRP starting at around $65,000. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to find one for MSRP nowadays. Everything is marked up, but the fact remains that it's not that expensive of a car. Dare I say, it's actually quite attainable. And you see, that's a bit of a problem for a supercar. Supercars are not supposed to be attainable. They're supposed to be cars that when you pull up at a gas station, somebody comes up to you and says, well, how much was that? And when you tell them, they're supposed to respond with, well, why would you spend that much on a car? $65,000 is not that much. Actually, in the course of filming this video, I've had a couple people come up, and when they've inquired about the price, their response was more of, well, that's pretty cheap for something like this. And that's not the kind of response that you get with a supercar. Now, piggybacking off of the conversation about pricing is exclusivity. Supercars are supposed to be something that everybody strives for, but very few people can actually have. And the Corvette really is not that exclusive of a car. It's going to be a mass-produced sports car that pretty much anybody can buy. Now, to explain what I mean by this, let's look at a car like the Pagani Huayra. See, performance is important with a supercar, but it's not the most important. It's not the only factor in earning that title. The Pagani Huayra is a great performance car. It has amazing performance that will blow away any normal car. But it doesn't stand out that much from cars like the Lamborghini Huracan, which is much cheaper, or indeed this Corvette. So why is it so heavily desired? It's because it's exclusive. You can't get one no matter how badly you want one, because the price is absolutely eye-watering. There's not that many of them made. That's the problem with the Corvette. Anybody can have a Corvette, and so by definition, it's not exclusive. See, the thing is that rich people love buying things that other people can't have. So if you make a bunch of cars, even if I buy it, someone else can buy it. So they're gonna be all over the place. You're not gonna feel all that special. But if they only made a few of them, or they made very limited numbers, me buying it now means that you can have it. And I don't know why, but that's a certain satisfaction that wealthy people have. In a way, that's what makes a supercar super. Now, the next part of this is a little bit harder to understand. See, supercars are something that you strive to own. Yes, you want to have them. And when you're younger, you tell yourself, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to make a bunch of money, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini, and I'm going to drive it every single day. But you notice a lot of people don't, and there's a reason for that. And it's not just because of how expensive the car is. It's because living with them is kind of a pain. See, getting in and out of them is quite difficult. They're super expensive to maintain. An oil change on a Lamborghini will cost you several $1,000s. It needs 16 to 18 hours of man labor and 4 to 5 different supercomputers to reset everything. It's a pretty extreme process. So what ends up happening is you've got a trickle charger and a car cover and all of these different amenities to keep this car in as good of condition as possible, and you end up not even driving it that much. In fact, you really only drive it down to the local Cars and Coffee on a Saturday morning to get a free cup of joe because you spent all your money on the optional carbon fiber dust caps. But with the Corvette, that's not really the case. You've got enough storage space to be able to do things, you know, nothing that you wouldn't expect from a small two-seater sports car, but it's manageable. It's comfortable to drive. It's easy to drive, actually. And though this new body style does draw quite a lot of attention, it's nowhere near what you would expect from a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. It's a good thing that the Corvette is a very livable car, but it being a better car makes it a worse supercar. You see what I mean? It's kind of hard to explain, and it almost doesn't really make any sense. But for those of you that have supercars, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now the car looks brilliant and it has all of the attributes of many supercars, especially in its exterior design, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's an exotic car. I'll try to explain it in a different way. Let me give it to you this way. If you have a man who is handsome, well-groomed, has a good, stable job, but his name is Larry. He dresses in plaid button-up shirts and simple denim jeans. He's a great guy. The Corvette is Larry. Lamborghini is the Puerto Rican pool boy that has a scruffy beard and messy hair. He trims the hedges without a shirt on and he always seems to be sweating. He can't speak English and his name is Alejandro. You see what I mean? Larry's a great guy, but he's not Alejandro. So this is actually my first time driving the new C8 Corvette. I've driven the C7. It was okay. It wasn't bad. It's a great car. It's just, I don't know, it's pretty easy to see where you're compromising on the price in the C7. The interior quality is not the best and there's a bit more shaking and rattling. Maybe that was just the car that I drove, but I wasn't too impressed with the interior. Had plenty of power, sounded great, but it just felt a little bit unrefined, which again, you should expect something like that for a car that costs so much less than other cars that it outperforms. But in this, it actually feels really nice. I do like the Alcantara. The Alcantara feels nice. The whole steering wheel, in fact, is Alcantara. You've got carbon fiber littered all over the interior. You've got these nice aluminum milled Bose sound system. Overall, it's pretty nice. All right, so first impressions on the new C8 Corvette. I don't know, it's missing that flair. It's missing that extra something to make it a supercar. But when I'm driving the car, I feel like I'm driving a great sports car. I don't feel like I'm driving a supercar. And a big part of having a supercar and owning a supercar, it's the experience, it's the feeling. And it's not something that you can really justify with performance numbers or 0 to 60 times. Being a supercar is more than just performance. I'll tell you, I've driven Lamborghinis, I've driven McLarens, I've been fortunate enough to drive a Ferrari 458 Speciale, and when I was driving those cars, it felt wow, you know? I couldn't really say why. Probably wasn't much faster, but I don't know, when you're growing up, you dream of driving a Lamborghini, you dream of driving a Ferrari, but when you grow up, this is gonna sound really bad, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but you settle for driving a Corvette. And it might be because you can't afford a supercar. It might just be because you've justified in your own mind that, oh, well, the performance is there. Why would I go for something more expensive? But you can't explain why. It's kind of like trying to explain to an enthusiast why you spent so much money on a car. You can't explain it, you know, and nothing that you tell them, no 0 to 60 times, no specs, are gonna make any sense to them because at the end of the day, they really just don't get it. It's kind of the same story with this car. It makes sense on paper, but I don't know, it doesn't give me the same spice that a supercar does. So is it a supercar? I'm afraid I'd have to say I don't think I would call the Corvette a supercar, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I still think it's probably one of the best sports cars that money can buy. If anything, they've just made it an even better sports car. So it not being a supercar is not negative. That's just a different kind of product. So if you want a supercar, you may have to look elsewhere. But if you want a brilliant sports car, I would definitely take a serious look at the new C8 Corvette. Now that's all I have for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave me a comment below about what you thought. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What would you like to see in future videos? Let me know down below. I try to answer my comments as often as possible. Now, please do leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's a great way to support the channel so that I can keep making videos like this for you. But that's all for now, so I'll see you in the next one. Take care.